Hi everyone, it's Adrienne. I'm doing the tarot tag by Ember HoneyRaven. The hashtag is Tellmetarot. I have the phone that I'm using with the questions, and I'm filming on a phone that I used before this one. So the first one is, what magical feature would you like to see in a tarot deck? It can be anything. This is a magical world, so let's make believe that we can have whatever we want. So hers was more creative. I literally just watched her tag, but I wanted to do it right away because I really love watching her videos, and I love Ember. So I think, well, I do have a couple. I'm sorry, well, it's not like a lot, but the first one would be for the decks to teleport or to like show up. I guess that's the same thing when you need them, because sometimes I don't feel like getting up and getting the deck, and other times I'm out and my bag can only hold so much. I do carry a mini backpack, but even so, I think that it carries a maximum of 6 decks, which is close to what I usually carry, so it can get, well, for my backpack, straining because my backpack is breaking from that. Another thing that that I would like to see is maybe, well, I don't know if, okay, so I would like to see, like, if you're calling on animal totems, elementals, and or fairies, different deities, if you're able to see them, like as the person that's reading or calling upon them, for other people to see them too, I think that would be that would be a really cool experience, but it might freak other people out, but I would like that. So the second question is, what is a pet peeve you have when looking at tarot or oracle decks? Cheap paper, artwork that doesn't resonate, tarot books that haven't been spell checked. Tell me what annoys you. So the number one thing that comes to mind is decks that aren't as diverse, like ethnicity wise, and that sometimes gives me, well, I have a harder time connecting with those decks. So I think that would be the number one. I do prefer thinner cardstock. I'm a sucker for having buttery cardstock that's easy to shuffle. I like drawing the cards out like this too. So for that, sometimes you would like to have a grip for that. So I do have a preference in cardstock, and I mean there is artwork that I'm not the biggest fan of, so I do end up trading or selling them if I end up not connecting with the artwork. So the third question is, well, spell check, that it would be spelled wrong. That would, it may bother me a little bit. It would depend on how noticeable it is, or I am, well, like, quote unquote, the grammar Nazi, or spelling Nazi, I suppose. So I think that maybe it would. But the third question is, name 2 tarot decks you would love to own. They can be vintage or new, anything you want. Who knows, if you win, maybe one will show up in your box. Winky face. So that's exciting. I'm not much of a tarot / oracle. Technically oracle. Tarot is an oracle too, but I don't window shop with that. I end up purchasing. I buy a lot of decks like a mofo. I just recently crossed off one that has been on my list for a really long time because I wasn't able to locate it, and I wasn't aware that there was a newer edition that's still hard to find, and I'll show that deck. And there's also a deck that I also received that is really, that really connects to me. And as soon as I saw it, I immediately purchased it as, like, when I had the money for it. So the first one is the Tantric Dakini Oracle. So there is an older edition that came out, I believe, 1979, and that is the Secret Dakini Oracle. So this is the box. And I got this at Salem over the weekend when I was driving up, not too far. As well, actually, I drove back to Salem the next day because I saw it and I didn't have enough money for it, and I just wanted it. And I know that this is going to be a counterpart for my Osho Zen Tarot. And the Osho Zen, it's kind of sad that I kind of friend-zoned it in a way, because it's still not necessarily in my top 10 aesthetically wise, or like overall, but I think it would be in a different top tarot deck category. So I use that deck nearly every day. I love it so much. It's one of the ones that I connect to the most, if not the one that I connect to the most. So this is the imagery. I love the phrases / words or word that it has on the bottom. It's so unique and it has its own flair. I think it's extremely clever. And I actually did trim and corner round these. Corner rounding using the larger or more obtuse corners. So I love this deck already. I know that it's going to be like my Osho Zen, and I wouldn't want to live without other decks, but I would say if I were to go on vacation, the best bet would be for me to bring my Osho Zen and my Tantric Dakini Oracle. It just seems so old school too, and I love it. One of my, I don't call it past lives anymore, I call it parallel lives, after having a discussion and seeing Mary Bo's video on soul contracts, because I feel like, and she feels like all the lives are all happening. So one of my parallel lives is one from, I would say around the 70s, and I may do a backstory on that, but it was just, I know that I loved it back then, and even the style that I have now is something similar to what I would dress up like in that time period. So the last card is Abundance, and the one at the bottom, I just did Slay Your Ego. I usually do that after I shuffle, so it didn't work this time. The other deck that I have that I wanted immediately, I saw it on Luna Celeste's tarot collection. It was her first one. This is based off of a book. I know Ember loves reading. I don't know if she's ever read this. So another parallel life is probably the most prevalent, is me being a fairy in this life and in another life. And in another life. And I even went to my psychic friend who, well, maybe I'll talk about him in another video, because he owns one of the shops in this area, and it's the only New Orleans voodoo shop in the Northeast. He told me that I'm a Habsy, because I am a half fairy too in this life, and he validated that for me because I already knew. And my goddess is the Morgan, like Ember's. She is my matron, and I go to her for everything. So anyway, this is it says #1 New York Times bestseller, and the author is Karen Marie Moning, Fever Tarot. I'm not sure, Ember, if you would like this. Well, the Fever series I heard is amazing. Even from reading the excerpts on her website, I fell in love with it. I actually blacked out one of the edges on the extra card. The deck did not like that. I automatically got an adverse energy reaction, and I got extremely nauseous, so I'm glad that I didn't do that on the cards that I'm actually using. So they are, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, so one of the characters, or from what I've heard, there are she-seers. She is a type of fairy race. And this is a fairy deck too. Is this upside down now? There's some sexuality, or a lot of sexuality, and I just fell in love with it. It's romantic fantasy or romantic sci-fi. I'm not really sure, but I love those genres anyway. There's this one card that really spoke to me. Well, a couple of cards, because I used to work as a go-go dancer, like as a pole dancer at a bikini bar, so we kept our stuff on. Not that I have a problem with strip clubs, but that made me just to confirm. It was a tough time in my life. I learned a lot. I loved the experience that I had because everyone was so loving there, and they were so honest, and they really were generous, and they were genuine because they've been through so much. So it was a dive bar too, so it was like the regulars. Everybody knew everybody, and it was so nice. I really loved it. But there was, let me see if I could find it, and there's I love the darkness to it because I tend to go for quote unquote darker decks, like aesthetically. And this is more of the straightforward type of decks, because some of them you build upon, others it's more of they're not going to tell you everything. It's more of leading you, and then you figure everything out for yourself, which I know the Morgan does too. She can work like that. I may pause it to show you the cards, because I do have another deck that I just to like fit in, because I got it the other day in a trade, and I didn't think I would get that either because it's out of print. So I'll be right back. So this is an important card. I will be doing a walkthrough, a little random, to explain it more. But this is the Fool card, and I love this Fool card so much. By the way, if you buy this deck and you don't read the book, you can read it without reading the series, I mean. And also, depending on how you read, like intuitively, or you're like more of a type of or psychic reader, then this is definitely a great deck if you're into it. But this Fool says, "I'm nobody" multiple times. And when I was, it's kind of complicated, but when I was going out with, I guess, my guy, I was in the car, and I was like more breaking down because I moved up here from New Jersey, and I kept saying I'm a nobody, I'm a nobody, I'm a nobody, and like multiple times. And this struck me, and I knew that this is like a deck for me, or the deck, being similar to the Oshos, and knowing that this is the one that I'll be coming back to constantly, and I don't have to be a lot of the times, like when you have specific types of decks and maybe themes to them that you may have to be in the mood, a lot of times I just like the Oshos, and I can pick this up. So the last deck that I would like to show is actually a trade from Dance of the Soul Tarot, and it's the Surco Tarot, which is, I believe it's an out of print, but it may be in print again. I'm not really sure. It's a self-published deck as with the Fever Tarot, and it's so quirky, it's so funny, it just makes me laugh, because you look at the cards and there's so much personality. Like, you could just imagine, even with the Page of Knives, like, he just looks like a fancy cactus, like a French cactus, I don't know, and he's like, I shall put this knife in the dart or something, I don't know, but I love the color scheme to it, and it's so beautiful, and it reads beautifully. I don't have a lot of those Rider-Waite Smith type of, I don't want to say clone, but they look a lot really similar to it. It's such a fun, loving deck. I hope that I get to use it for the fall, because I recently got it over the weekend, and it does feel like more of a warmer season type of deck. But a lot of these look like they have costumes. It's very fishy and watery, and I just love it about it. I am an air sign, I'm a Libra, but majority of my astrological chart is in Scorpio, so I find that really interesting. I might, oh, isn't this pretty? I think it's vibrant pastels. I'm not quite sure. But this was one of the first cards. There was another card, which was the Wheel of Fortune, that came up for me when I first did my shuffle and drew the card from the top and took one from beneath the deck. So, sorry, I'm rushing, but it's so gorgeous. And I don't have a lot of lighter feeling decks, like happier, jovial decks, because again, I tend to go for more of the darker shamanic, native, fairy, Celtic, those types of decks. It may be like in those traumatic decks, or the darker type of decks, quote unquote. It's more of a healing one. They're more appealing ones to me usually. I love when I see houses and decks. I don't know why. I'm a very homey family type of person, so I think that may be a reason. I'm sorry if I'm just rambling, but I really love the deck, and I haven't really shown it that much. I may actually do another video on this deck, but probably after, because I'm behind and there's acrobats in here. So now I'm just rambling on about, and oh, sorry, last one. And this one just makes me laugh too, because it's the Five of Cups, but it looks like he's dancing. Like, I'm just gonna dance around the cups. So thank you so much for this tag. I really enjoyed it and talking, and I hope to see everybody in sometime in another video. All right, bye.